Fascists are coming. The tech companies want every inch of your life. We're entering a new era, a new system. Fascism, techno-feudalism. How do you survive in this new system? Let's get into it today. My name is Mino, and I'm the creative director of the Catharsis Project, which, as I've said the last couple of weeks, is really just a platform for me to explore my own ideas, express what's on my mind, and to have some fun along the way. The inspiration I had last week, as I mentioned, was I'd love to somehow turn this more into almost like a radio show. I love the multimedia format of getting to speak and share, but also music. I love music, so it'd be fun to share some music. I would love to do a little experiment today. If you'll indulge me, I'm going to be sharing little snippets of music just to do an experiment and see how it works in this format, to see if it's even possible to do like a radio show-esque format. I promise the music will be short, so I'm not going to be playing full songs, just small snippets here and there just to see if I like the format. So I'll be serving the best beats that are copyright free on this program here today, and excited to explore this topic. So I want to start with a little observation I had the other day. I was driving in my car, and usually I'm almost always connecting to Bluetooth, but I couldn't get the Bluetooth to work, so I decided I'm going to just rock and roll with the radio today. I rarely listen to the radio, but it's nice. It's kind of nice to hear. There's something kind of collective about the radio, right? A community almost experience, because you know other people are listening to it, and you kind of know, oh, this is what other people are also up to and listening to. It's not just my Spotify bubble, my party of one. I get to actually hear what other people are into these days. And as I'm driving in my car, I have a bit of an older car. I think it's like a 2015 model. So the car is probably approaching about 12 years old now. And it doesn't have smart computer interfaces or anything, right? It just has pretty manual standard things from circa 2014. But on the radio, you can see a display that shows the radio station that's playing. And what I noticed as I was driving is that all of a sudden I started getting advertisements, like printed advertisements on my kind of little computer screen that's in the car. And I was a bit shocked by this. I didn't realize they could transmit advertisements directly into my car. Everywhere I turn, everywhere we go, there are advertisements. It is as if I cannot escape advertising. Try and read an article and I'm bombarded with advertisements. I am going on social media and I'm bombarded by promotions and sponsorships, on YouTube, like even comedians that I like, they're all now essentially just producing advertisements. They are sponsored content. No matter where I turn, I don't know, I can barely find anything in my life that is just not an advertisement these days, which is bizarre. It is absolutely peculiar that everywhere we go, there has been a collapse of boundaries in the digital age. So there are virtually no spaces around us that we're not being advertised to. The only exception is probably going out in nature, like going off into the woods. That's like the only place I can find these days where I'm not being aggressively advertised to. And of course, this wasn't always the case. Even within our lifetimes, I'm sure we'll reflect back on times where it wasn't this pervasive. Our refrigerators weren't jingling and selling us products. We didn't have Alexas. We didn't have cell phones. Like, this penetration into every corner of life didn't used to exist. I mean, if you wanted to go buy something, you had to go to a marketplace. So there was a physical place that was usually contained. In the United States, we had shopping malls. And if you go to Europe, right, like you might have a bazaar, a souk, you might have a farmer's market, but there was a physical place that you walked into. And then when you left, you were done engaging in commerce. It would be very peculiar for someone to try and engage you in commerce outside of these commercial zones. Today, we have no commercial zones. Our malls have shut down. Everything's on their phones. And those phones are with us in our beds, on our couches, in our cars. So everywhere we turn, there's been a complete collapse of the physical space into this digital commerce, digital reality. Businesses love this. I studied economics, and one of the things they never told us about, which is kind of bizarre if you take 4 years of econ classes, is that as a business, you have kind of one goal. Like, there's one way to win the game. And it was only when I became an entrepreneur and started my own business that I was like, There is one way to win this game, and that is to become a monopoly. That is the goal of every single company. Any company, any founder, any CEO, any managing director, anyone who turns to you and says, my goal is not to be a monopoly, is lying to you and is maybe lying to themselves. But every business wants to be a monopoly. Why? Because you want to be a choice of one for your ideal customer. So for the customers that we work with in my day job, 3Peak, I co-founded with two other co-founders a consulting group called the 3Peak Group. And so in the 3Peak Group, for my customers, my ideal customers, I want them to know one word, one company, 3Peak. I don't want them to know about every other place, right? I want them to purchase our services. So I do everything in my mortal and immortal, powers, whatever I have at my disposal to become a monopoly, right? Now, there are different kinds of monopolies, right? One is differentiated monopoly, which is I'm basically just different from everyone else. So everyone else is selling blue, I sell red, then all of a sudden I'm a monopoly on red for the time being, right? There's another type of monopoly, which is you basically crush everyone, right? So you eliminate all the competition. And this is where monopolies, I think, they get a bad name, and they should get a bad name because a lot of predatory practices. There's a lot of systemic imbalances that happen that way, a lot of consequences we have to pay as a society. Yeah, I'm not saying monopoly is a good thing, but it is the goal of every business owner to become a monopoly, because it's only when you're differentiated, whether because you're truly different or you've crushed everyone else, that you can actually successfully make a profit and raise your prices and essentially have choice in terms of who you're working with in your business. So monopoly is the goal of capitalism. That is the kind of end state. I personally believe that the best monopoly is when you're truly differentiated, right? If you are truly making a different product and you are an N of one, then like people come to you because you're actually doing something that's of value and you're unique and you're authentic. So we are trying to become a monopoly through our authenticity. So to say, actually, we bring a very unique blend of things, and that's what makes us worth purchasing. Now, if we go a little bit more to that domination model, right? We go more to the monopoly that wants to pillage and plunder. One of the holy grails in economics is called price discrimination. So often, if you've taken even like a 101 course in economics, you learn about supply and demand. So it's the first chart or the second chart you draw on the second day of economics is there's a curve that's the total amount of supply and the curve that's the total amount of demand, and where they intersect is where you're going to have a price, a quantity, and that's where you're going to actually be selling. Now, this demand curve, it's all theoretical, of course, right? But the demand curve, what it essentially looks at is what's the aggregate? Like, what is the average price I can sell this product or service to get the most? But when you charge an average price to kind of try to maximize your sales, what you leave on the table is people who have more money and would be willing to spend more money. So right now I have a cup of coffee that I made for myself. Let's say the average price of coffee is $5, which is probably not these days, but let's just say you go get a cappuccino. I'm in the city of Philadelphia, so I can still find cups of coffee for about $5 here. So I spend my $5, and you're selling this same coffee to everyone for $5. But then someone walks in and they actually are pretty wealthy. They love coffee. They love your coffee, and they'd be willing to spend $10. So how do you capture their extra $5? How do you capture their $10 so that you can make a little bit of extra money? This is price discrimination. And it's really hard to price discriminate when you don't have information about your customer. Now enter big data, tech firms, these online advertisers. It's the first time probably in modern human history that we can price discriminate, and we can actually create personas and profiles of our buyers, and we can perfectly target them. So where this is going, in my humble opinion, is that not only will you over time be shown different things on search. So we already know this, right? If I Google something, you Google something, we're going to have completely different search results. Over time, I believe we're also going to have completely different price points, because the goal is to extract the most profit possible. So that means I'm going to try and get the most you value this product for out of your pocket. If you value this coffee for 5, I'm going to sell it to you for 5. If you value this thing for 10, I'm going to sell it to you for 10. And already we're starting to see this with dynamic pricing. So some places, I think it's like fast food, are starting to basically look at supply and demand in terms of timing. But the more that we shop online, the more we have these kind of digital avatars, digital personas, I believe dynamic pricing will shift to actually charging you and me different prices depending on what our income is, what we value products at, what our kind of profile is overall, right? So this is where we're going, is they're going to squeeze every freaking penny out of us. Yeah, that is their goal. And I don't even blame them, because that is the goal of a company. It's the goal of society and the politics to regulate and check that system, to keep it in check. One of the big failures right now is that our political system refuses to check the private sector and the economic sphere. But that's the concept, right? Is like you create the rules of the game, and then I play within the rules of the game, and then you change the rules of the game, I adapt to that. I truly don't believe private companies can or should be self-regulating themselves. It just doesn't work out. You need a regulatory body. You need someone else to set the rules of the game. You need to adjust those accordingly so that power doesn't concentrate in the hands of the few, as has happened. So advertisers want these personas. You want as much detail as possible. So that is where the tech companies come in. The social media platforms were originally created with this idea or intention to network, to connect, to relate to one another. But lo and behold, what happened? It's very hard to monetize that. It's hard to create social networks. So you want to encourage people to get on and stay on. So you make it free. Because if you had to pay to be part of the social network, no one would join, especially not the average person, unless it was some kind of very exclusive social clique. But if you're going to do mass market social networking like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you need to get people on there, because the number one thing is I want to go on there to talk to my friends. So my friends have to also join. So you have this chicken and egg problem with social networks, which is if no one's there, no one's going to join. So how do you get people to join? So then other people join, and there's a tipping point where now everyone uses it. So part of that is it's for free. You want to connect with your friends, and you also want them to be producing content to keep people engaged and entertained. So you have people sharing photos on Instagram, sharing posts on their Facebook wall, and, onward. And so you're kind of constantly filling this space with free content. But even that is not enough content, right? So then you start monetizing content. So then you start paying the creator side of it so that you have more supply of creativity, more supply of content that people can consume. So then we're making more, all to keep people there, all to learn more and more about them, just so eventually you can create buyer personas and then price discriminate and sell them more shit. And the way I think about this is like, it's as if we've turned our entire life into Times Square. So if you've ever been to Times Square in New York City, it is I find it a very overwhelming place, where there's, all these like huge billboards, they're digital, there's all these neon lights, there's masses of people, there's people selling you Broadway tickets and people trying to scam you and donations. And it's just this like clusterfuck of commercial activity. And now we've transported Times Square into our bedrooms, into our cars, onto your refrigerator. Like everywhere you turn, there is an advertisement. There is a Times Square billboard blaring loudly in our faces. And the crazy thing is, the moment a social network takes place, right, when enough people are on it, then I'm sure we've all experienced this, not being on it puts you at a disadvantage in life on a social level. You're the weirdo, I'm the weirdo if we don't have social media. I've noticed this as an entrepreneur. This really was a rude wake up, where in the beginning of the three-peat group, when we first started, we decided to not have social media presence. We didn't have a website, because in theory, look, I give services to human beings. I can see you in person. I can shake your hand. We can write contracts. We could do everything analog, right? And what happened is we would do all those steps. We would get to the end and they'd say, well, I don't see you on LinkedIn. I don't see you on social media. So how do I know you're real? You know I'm real because I'm standing right in front of you. I'm shaking your hand. I'm showing you all our materials. I'm showing you our case studies, having a coffee with you. And it's like, without that social proof, I can't trust that you're a legitimate company or you're a trustworthy company. Whoa. So that was a big wake up call for me. Social media becomes social proof. Becomes how we trust people. It's how it's quote unquote verifiable and real. So we made a hard pivot 2 or 3 years ago now where we said, okay, we have to have a digital presence. So we spun up a LinkedIn, a YouTube channel, Instagram, TikTok, like whatever now we have a Substack, like anywhere you turn, we now have digital presence. We have followers, we have, subscribers, everything that shows to other people, well, okay, this is a company and people are listening to them. Therefore, I can also buy from them. For me, this is crazy because I got into 3Peak to do consulting. I work with CEOs, I consult them. I didn't get into it to do dances on TikTok. But all of a sudden, my customer is telling me if I don't do dances on TikTok, then they won't buy from me, even though they have nothing to do with each other. So this is why, unfortunately, you see all the entrepreneurs, all these people get into content creation. I have several friends that are entrepreneurs. None of us want to be doing this. None of us want to be advertising on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Instagram. But the reality is we do have to have a social presence or our business, for whatever reason, seems to not exist in the minds of people. So social proof, yeah, it's the cost of doing business these days. I don't want to be posting on LinkedIn. I'll be so honest. I really don't want to. We have to go through these gatekeepers, and there are specific distribution channels that matter more than others. LinkedIn, Google, YouTube, which is owned by Google, Meta, so Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. There's these certain platforms that have that kind of verifiable trust. Or with 3Peak, we also have a business podcast. So we're on Apple and Spotify. So we're all on all these like kind of blue chip, high marquee kind of distribution channels. I also have a website. Very little people actually care about my website. It doesn't actually credentialize me. It doesn't give social proof. It's something, right, where people can go learn more about us. It's like a storefront window, but that's not the social proof they're looking for. They want to see us on social media. And so we run into this issue of now there are digital gatekeepers because these distribution channels, there's not a million of them. There's a small collection of distributors where all of the commerce is happening. So LinkedIn is the most obvious one because everyone goes on LinkedIn for a professional reason. You are either selling yourself as talent, as an employee or freelancer, or you're there as an employer, or you're there advertising to professionals because you have professional services. So LinkedIn is very clearly just a marketplace, right? The thing is, the other ones are too, but it's like kind of lied about because we go there and we're like, entertain us, right? Here we are now, entertain us. And then people are advertising and creating content and doing business. So it still is a marketplace. We've kind of hidden it behind a couple layers of like, oh, well, my friends are there too. LinkedIn, as shitty as LinkedIn is, it's probably one of the most honest about like everyone's there to sell something. Instagram, everyone's there to sell something too. We just don't talk about it in that way. And so this is where we are shifting actually from a capitalistic system into something different and maybe worse. The former Greek finance minister, Yanis Varoufakis, he has spoken the most, and I think the most clearly about this phenomenon. So a lot of what I'm going to share comes from ideas that he has shared. Yanis Varoufakis, he posits that we're entering a new age of techno-feudalism. Techno-feudalism. So in essence, these tech companies, they own all the real estate that we operate on, but it's digital real estate. So let's back up. What was feudalism? Feudalism was essentially a system by which all the land in Europe was owned. So it was all accounted for. And you had a very rigid social hierarchy. So there was a king, there was like lords and barons and manors and serfs. And so there's this whole social system, and largely, if we paint in very broad brush strokes, this system was kind of frozen in place for several hundred years. So it was very hard to have social mobility. So whatever you were born into is what your children would be born into, is what your grandchildren would be born into. If you were a serf, there's no way you're going to wake up, or a peasant wake up and all of a sudden become the king. That didn't happen. So there wasn't a lot of social mobility. And so what happened many times in the system is the land is owned by the king, and everyone else works it to gain food or a little bit of income, and they pay rent, tribute to the king, to the lords, to the manor, etc. So it was a system of rent. No one owned anything. It was a centralized ownership, which is why another reason why mobility was so difficult. You could not create excess value. And even if you did create excess value, you couldn't buy land. You couldn't buy anything to have it on your own and then to kind of multiply the effects of profit. So the profit all went up to the top. In techno-feudalism, we essentially are merging into a similar system in the digital landscape. A few companies own all the digital space, and if you want to be on their digital land, you have to work it for free, which is what content creation is you work for free and you get to rent a little plot of digital land. That's not how the internet started. You'd start your own blog, your own forum, and you could go between these different islands, right? And have this interconnection, which is called the internet, which is really cool. And that was the original promise, is actually it's a very democratized system. And if you look at how the internet was set up intentionally in the beginning, especially with projects like open source, the whole point was it was a very democratized, egalitarian system. Well, what's happened over time is there been massive consolidation. The highway of the internet became search. So Google monopolized search. They are the ones that put the results on the front page. So then everyone said, I have to optimize to get on the first page, which is what we call search engine optimization, SEO. I'll tell you a little bit of a secret on the back end. How do you get on the first page of Google? There's two basically things. One is you get backlinks. That means that other people are linking to your website. So other people are sourcing and citing and referencing you. So, oh, you must be important. And the other is you have a lot of searchable key phrases. So you just produce shitloads of content. So when Google crawls your website, you're like, whoa, this person's talking about, coffee more than anyone else. They must be the coffee expert. So Google incentivized producing tons and tons and tons of content, which is one of the reasons I think the internet has just filled with so much freaking content, is Google incentivized it and then became the only ones that can help you sort through the mess. So it's a very funny game they actually ended up playing out, where they kind of self-created their own success by inducing the right incentives. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, there's not that many places you can go anymore to do your advertising. That's where the eyeballs are, right? So there's a concentrated web of activity. No one's searching the web for random websites anymore. It doesn't seem that way. It seems like we all go to these portals, right? We go to Reddit, and like huge percentages, I forget, is like 25% of the internet flows to Reddit or something. So we're going through these like massive portals to be able to distribute information and advertise. And that means they're in control. So as we've seen in the last few years, you can get deplatformed. You can get kicked off YouTube, you can get kicked off Twitter, you can get kicked off Facebook. And I'm not going to talk about the ethics or the morality or the justification of that. I'm just stating a fact that you can get kicked off platforms, which means that your access to distributing your information is shut down, right? So if I were running my business and we got kicked off all these platforms, especially in the beginning, we would have been dead in the water. We needed these platforms to have social proof. Now that our business is, and again, we're in a unique situation where we can sell to people one-on-one. I could do it in person if I needed to. It's not like a mass producing online e-commerce thing. Now we have enough momentum that we probably could continue to keep things going just through our website and word of mouth. But in the beginning, we needed that social proof particularly. What's interesting is a lot of these platforms are starting to calcify. And AI is one of the driving reasons that they're starting to calcify. So the internet has a huge problem with the amount of AI content creation. So let's go back to the case of Google. Google, like I said, incentivized making content because then you're seen as an expert. The person who has the most articles about the keyword becomes the top search result. Now with AI, you can churn out infinite content about every topic possible. and it's already happened. The moment ChatGPT was commercialized, people started to produce what's now being referred to as AI slop en masse. But Google and the other platforms struggle. They struggle to be able to discern what's real and what's not real, or what's human and what's AI created. There will come a point in time where I think we truly will not be able to tell the difference between what's AI created and human created, and we're getting pretty close already. So Google freaked out and was basically like, shit, we don't know what's AI, what's not AI. They're flooding the system with this AI slop. Let us just freeze SEO where it is. So Google rolled out, it was last year, and it was essentially the death of SEO, the death of the internet, I think. It was the death of like small business. Like as a small business owner, you're not able to get up on the number one page of Google anymore. What they did is they froze it. They just said, wherever your rank is now, that's kind of going to be your rank going forward. If you're already kind of a website that's proven to us in the past, you're real and you're making good content, you get to still exist and be on the front page. And if not, you're going to stay where you are. So me as a small business, I never made it on the front page of Google for the key topics that we're talking about. And now I don't think we ever will. Doesn't matter what we produce. I could write, every content, every article, hand by AI. It doesn't even matter. We're frozen in place. So there's been a social stratification and a freezing. You go then to like LinkedIn, you go to YouTube, you go to Instagram. And what's on the back end as creators, what we're seeing more and more and more is that there is an emergence of a pay to play model, especially on LinkedIn. If you want to do well on LinkedIn, generally speaking, more and more, you have to pay. You have to promote and sponsor and run your content, even if it's organic content, as ads. So everything is becoming pay to play. So people who have money to spend on advertising will get up and chart well with the algorithm. People who do not have money to spend are stuck where they are. So what we're going to be seeing is a stratification across all social media platforms. This concept of social mobility is about to be class locked, and soon you will not be able to just randomly go viral, or it will just be like the lottery, like one person a year. You're the tribute, right? What was the woman's name? Talk to a girl, right? Like once a year, we're going to have a symbolic, viral video, viral creator, just to show the masses, see, you can still come on here and make content, one or two a year, just to show the system, quote unquote, still works. For the rest of us, it's going to be pay to play or frozen in place, and that'll be the end of social mobility on the internet. So this system runs contrary to a lot of Western thought, which is based in the Enlightenment. The last few hundred years, a lot of our values and way we've orchestrated our society is based on this concept of the Enlightenment thinkers, right? So they prize things like freedom of movement, self-determination, personal independence, this like liberty, freedom, fraternity, a community, right? Like there was these still I would call them very beautiful ideals that we kind of tried to make a reality in our system. The Enlightenment came to kind of shatter the last kind of vestiges of feudalism. So it really came to replace that feudalistic system. So rather than you're just frozen as a peasant and a serf forever, now with Enlightenment, you can actually become something else. You can enter a different class. This concept of meritocracy and working hard and earning rewards and achievement, all of this comes from Enlightenment thinking. So that the tech companies have to keep us on the digital land. This is the biggest threat to the digital, fiefdom is you could just turn the shit off. If the power goes out, they collapse, right? Like this is the beauty of tech feudalism as opposed to actual feudalism. Is actual feudalism, people own all the land. In tech feudalism, they just own a digital thing. And at the end of the day, we could just turn our phones off and be done with it. So this is, I think, pretty obvious at this point. They want us to stay engaged. They want us to keep scrolling through these feeds. They want to keep us on the platform because then they learn more about us. They can sell us more shit. And by learning more about us, they can sell us better shit and price discriminate and everything I mentioned at the beginning. They want us to stay on. The only way to keep us in that system is emotional capture. Emotional capture. Emotional capture is they keep us hooked by keeping our emotions high. That's the only way for us to keep going through all of this slop and this kind of advertising and all this shit that isn't actually that nutrient dense. So they feed on high emotion. Even sometimes it's base primal, right? So the proliferation of pornography or violence, like it's something that touches us on a primal level. But there'd also be fear, excitement, outrage, dread, depression. Anything that is a heightened emotion immediately sucks us into the world of the techno-feudalists. This is what they optimize for. And that's also what we as people who view the content, so people who are on there as just, the peasants, the serfs, we want to be entertained, right? The moment that you're bored, you hit swipe, swipe, swipe. So we don't want to be bored on these platforms. And boredom is what would get us to turn the phone off and maybe go do something else. So the whole system is hijacking our nervous systems and our emotional systems and trying through every means possible to get us hyped up. When Facebook was researching how to create their algorithm, their news feed, who did they turn to? Behavioral scientists that were into gambling and gaming. These tech systems are modeled after casinos. You go into the casino, it's dark, there's no windows, you can't see outside the system, and you're constantly chasing the high, chasing the win. So as we scroll through the content, we're just trying to get that jackpot. What's a funny video, an outrageous video? I'm trying to get a hit of emotion. And that's the whole system is designed to hit our emotional body. So at a minimum, if we want to kind of move away from tech feudalism, if we want to limit the power of the tech companies, there's 3 ways we can relate to these tech companies. The first is we just do what they want, right? We totally succumb. It's this unconscious, total immersion. Like we're just doom scrolling and emotionally overwhelmed, and we get burnout. And it's like this passive suffering and loss of agency. And it's like we're just the serf, we're just the peasant, that is one strategy, right? And many of us, including myself, often engage in that strategy. There's another strategy, which is total asceticism. It's a total withdrawal, right? It is, I do not have any of these platforms. I'm completely disconnected, right? Like a monk in the mountains. I have no contact with the social media world. Trust me, I have also tried this strategy many, many times. I was off of Instagram for 5 years, beginning around the COVID period. So 2019 to 2024, I was completely and utterly off Instagram. And I don't know how they somehow sucked me back in. I don't know what happened. Like I went from not even having on my phone to spending hours on Instagram every day. So I don't know how they even managed to get me back in, but they did it. They did it. Now I'm in a period where I have completely removed all social media from my phone once again, because I realize that it is absolutely frying my brain. And every time I'm on social media, I find myself getting very, very unhappy. And I'm like, my life is good. I look around me in my physical life and I'm like, my life is good. Why am I so fucking unhappy? And it's social media. So there is, of course, this loss of being part of the culture and being part of things, but that's one strategy, which is the cold turkey. I just rip it, right? Having said that, I still allow myself sometimes to go on the PC, on the computer. I have a Mac, I guess. I go on my computer and I use some of these platforms on the computer at my desk only. Like back when I was a teenager in my house, we had a computer, room, so to speak. It was like a guest room, computer room. And we had a desk with the desktop. And my sister and I would share and alternate using the computer in the house. That's kind of the mode I'm back in, which is all right, you want to use the computer? Go sit on the computer. At some point, I find myself, I'm bored. I don't feel like sitting at my desk. I get up and leave. So it's a bit of a way to still kind of be in the middle. But most importantly, and this is the whole point I wanted to make this video, is I wanted to share this concept that is popularized by the teacher and mystic Osho, which is becoming the Buddha in the marketplace. So this is option number 3. And I believe, and we'll get to the fascism in a second, but I believe this is the most important quality we can have as personal private citizens, as consumers in this new digital age. The Buddha in the marketplace. Imagine being in Times Square. Imagine being so overwhelmed by the billboards and people pushing you and grabbing at you, and everyone's running up and trying to get something, and there's like 3 Elmos triangulating you, and they're dirty and they smell and they're trying to rip your money away from you, and someone wants to take your kid, and there's all this like overwhelm, right? It's very, very easy to go into stress, fight, flight, or freeze in such a chaotic, overwhelming, like kind of commercial hub. What if we were able to bring a little bit of presence to observe and witness ourselves and the situation, and to be really total in our beingness? So not to get pulled left and right, not to have the high emotional reaction. Without the high emotional reaction, no one has power over us. It's only when we give that away that then someone has power over us. And so I would suggest that we can have presence without emotional capture. We can have boundaries without rejection, and we can have awareness while participating. So this is what I'm attempting. Probably not really well, but I'm attempting when I sit at my computer and I go on Instagram on my web browser like an old man, is can I bring some awareness to what does this evoke inside me emotionally? And when I notice emotion, can I take a break? Pause, not bring my emotionality, because that is what they're harvesting. That is what they're harvesting. The system harvests emotion. So is it possible to move through life with presence, boundaries, and awareness? Can we separate these things in our life? Like I created a space, right? A physical space I have to go if I want to engage in social media. It is a desk, right? I no longer carry it on my phone. It's no longer in my bedroom with me while I'm driving, out with my friends. There's no way for me to access these platforms. So I've created a boundary. This is like when Jesus flipped the table, right? And what's remarkable to me is like 2,000 years later, we're still debating the meaning of flipping the table. I don't know why. I don't know if this is just like very presumptuous. I feel like it's quite obvious. But you have like the, more left liberal that's like, oh, like Jesus is against capitalism. I was like, I really, like I need someone, like I'm questioning my sanity. Jesus did not want commerce in the space of worship. It's not that he was against commerce. It's not that he was against selling things or buying things, but he didn't want the commercial activity inside the temple. There had to be boundaries. There had to be a separation in life. So you do your commerce in the marketplace. We have a spiritual marketplace where we do our spiritual acts in the spiritual center, and we keep these things distinct. And so when you try to bring commerce into the spiritual realm, he flips the tables dramatically, right? And he chases the money lenders and the capitalists. I know we're capitalists at that point, but like the merchants, like out of the temple. So we need boundaries. We need things to have their proper place. The mall was probably a good idea, actually. So everything's in one place. I know when I go to the mall, and right now it's almost Christmas time, I know it's going to be a shit show. Like, I know it's going to be hard to find parking. People are going to be like stressed and driving like crazy. You're going to the mall and everyone's going to be running around and grabbing things. And like, what it is. Or like when I was a kid on Black Friday, right? Like you knew what it was going to be if you went out on Black Friday. Like in the United States, we would make a ritual sacrifice every Black Friday, and we would kill a couple Americans on the altar of capitalism. But like I think you would have to know if you're going to go buy a big TV on Black Friday and you're going to be standing outside those gates at Walmart waiting for it to open, and you're waiting for the stampede, that you might be one of the Americans that we sacrifice to keep this capitalistic endeavor going, right? And if you don't want to participate in that, you just don't go to the mall on Black Friday. You don't go to Walmart. You stay at home and eat your leftovers from Thanksgiving. It's that easy. It's that easy. And it's amazing to have that kind of division, that separation in the world. So you know where to go if you want to avoid this thing. Now, anywhere I go, I get fucking notifications on my phone that's like this discount. In my email, it's like I have 200 fucking promotions in my personal email. All this spam, like anywhere I go now, it's Black Friday. And who are we sacrificing? We're sacrificing ourselves on the altar of capitalism. But instead of stampeding and killing someone physically, now we all bear the brunt of it psychologically and in our mental health. So let us, like again, withdrawing from the world is one strategy, but I think there has to be something else, which is the Buddha in the marketplace. It is allowing ourselves to be able to walk through life, no, to glide through life and not be touched by all of the hooks and claws that are coming towards us. Which leads me now to the topic of fascism. So, in the United States today and around the world, or I guess you could say particularly Europe, we see this rise of fascistic tendencies, right? If I'm being a nitpicker, I don't yet see full-blown fascism, but you probably need to show the tendencies before you get to the full-blown thing. But we see a lot of tendencies towards fascistic governance right now. And fascism thrives on emotion. Back to the same topic. Usually, these movements are led by narcissists, like actual narcissists, not just, everyone on TikTok calling everyone a narcissist, but like actual clinical narcissists. When we study fascism, we study the leadership and governance of fascism, typically clinical narcissists lead these movements. Narcissists occupy such an interesting role in human systems and human dynamics. Not going to open the topic fully today, but I believe we severely misunderstand the role of narcissists in human relating dynamics. They do have a role to play. Even if it's an ugly role to play, they have a role to play. But often, if we just turn again back to the fascism part of it, fascists and narcissists, they feed on emotion. It's like a hurricane. So if you look at Trump feeds on positive and negative emotion. For him, when a hurricane strengthens in warm water, right? It goes from like a tropical storm to category 5. You need warm water. Narcissists need emotion because they can hook into that emotion and then they can pull people and move them around. And it's a very interesting dynamic when you start to look at it from the space of an observer. So with narcissists, clinical narcissists, we kind of have the same 3 options. You can either completely go into the game with them, and they're always going to win because they're masters of the game, but they're going to pull you, you get emotional, you get mad, you get sad, you get this, you get that, and they will maneuver you wherever the fuck they want, right? So that's one default option. It's just like I keep fighting with them. The second is you cut them off, right? So that's common advice, is like totally cut them off, cut them out of your life, be done with them. And to some extent, that might be good advice. Maybe. I don't know. I question it, to be honest. I also come from a culture where you don't really cut people off or cancel people. This is a very like Western European or Northern European American kind of way of seeing social relationships, which is like, I don't like you. I don't like what you're doing. I'm never going to talk to you again. I am Greek. I come from the Mediterranean. There are a lot of cultures. I would probably say it seems like the majority of cultures, excluding this kind of Northern European thing, where we're all part of a family. We're all part of a tribe. We find ways to deal with each other. We don't just throw people into the wind. We don't throw people out. This has its own set of dysfunctions and own set of complications. Don't get me wrong. There's pros and cons to each. But for me, it's very difficult from the culture I come from to be like, oh, you're a narcissist, I throw you away. I don't believe in throwing people away. It's one of my values. So I try to find a way to be in relationship that looks different depending on the people and the values we have, but I try to stay in relationship with the people in my family, at least. I don't throw people away. That's just, I cannot wrap my head around them, to be honest. And with them, like I said, you could completely throw them away. So that's one option. You could completely suffer under their regime, or we're back to the thing of like, can you bring regulated presence and awareness? So I have people in my family, especially one in particular, who is a clinical narcissist. This person in my family, what I have found is it's like the greatest dojo for emotional regulation practice. The moment I feel any emotion whatsoever, this family member has got me. I'm done. So I use it as an opportunity to regulate my emotions, to be really clear in my intentions and my needs and my wants. And you can kind of broker something that starts to resemble, I think, a functional relationship. Caveat, because the game always reinvents itself. So it's never going to be, I think, fully until that person chooses to go in their own journey and transform. I don't think it's ever going to be like perfect or ever probably be fully functional, but you can start to approximate something that might feel a bit healthier over time. So if the fascists and the narcissists want us to be emotional, they want us engaged, then I believe one of the greatest acts to dissipating the whole game is to not become emotional. And this is the whole game with Trump. Trump, every time he ran for president, everyone gets so emotional. I'm not saying disconnect. The whole point of this is to say, I'm not saying disconnect. I'm not saying ignore that he exists. But if you cannot regulate your emotion, he's won. The moment there's outrage and dread and excitement and happiness, whether you're high or you're low or in between, if it's high emotion, he has won. He's got you. He's got you, got you, got you. And this is, you can see this in the Democratic Party, is because he has dominated the Democratic Party so much that they have just become the anti-Trump party. So anything Trump does, they're just automatically against it. Trump could come out tomorrow and say, I saved 100 kids. And I have a feeling the Democrats would say, you're evil for saving 100 kids. Because anything that he does, they just define themselves in opposition of it. So he's leading the dance. And this is when we're in rebellion, when we're against something, whatever we're against, if we stay against it, the moment it shifts, we are forced to shift alongside it. So if there's a dance, like a tango, right? And there's the follower and the leader, and you're a Democrat and you're against Trump, so everything you do is anti-Trump, you're defining yourself through Trump, then anything Trump does, he leads you somewhere, he leads you somewhere, he leads you somewhere. So the entire Democratic, and I think people would be hard pressed to admit this, but when you step back, the entire Democratic establishment is being led by Trump. The entire Republican establishment is being led by Trump. He is defining the two political parties fully. So he has daddied them both, which is wild to see. What the Democrats could do instead is not fall into high, heightened emotions. They could instead get in touch with their own needs, desires, wants, boundaries, create a compelling vision of where they want to go with things. Instead, they've succumbed to the game, and Trump will always win that game. So it's important on one level that we regulate our emotions. The other thing we can do to protect ourselves against this techno-feudalism and fascistic tendency in our governance is, as much as possible, own things ourselves. They don't want us to own assets. They don't want us to own our own relationships. They don't want us to own creativity. They don't want us to own income streams. They want to own those things, and then you rent them from them. So if you want to have friends, and the only way you can contact your friends is through Instagram, Instagram owns your friendships. You are just renting them from Instagram. If corporations own your income, then you are dependent fully on that system. If you cannot be creative without posting it online, and that's your only way of anything, making money, this, that, you are fully dependent on this system that wants to harvest you, harvest your energies and creativity. It just wants to suck it all up. And so this is where I feel a little conflicted, because, okay, we don't have to become entrepreneurs, right? Not everyone needs to be an entrepreneur, and it's a brutally difficult lifestyle, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. I wouldn't wish it on almost anyone, but it's the one place I've found where actually you can own almost everything after a certain point in time. So I own my clients, my income, my relationships, my networks, my website, like everything I've cultivated. I have the email addresses of the people that are important to me. As much as possible, I own everything. I'm insulated. I can say whatever the fuck I want. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And as long as my clients, who I don't have infinite clients, I have, like, let's say 10, 20, 50 really important people who share my values, by the way, which is the cool part of having your own company. As long as they don't all kind of disappear on me, then I'm good. I'm good. I can say whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. And that helps me to be free, to actually be free. And I feel like if I were to see something in front of me and I needed to speak up about it, I can because I own everything. I'm independent, or interdependent at least, of the system. I'm not afraid of being fired. I'm not afraid of being penalized. I'm not afraid of being kicked off social media. I don't care. It's that independence, that freedom that actually, I think, then enables someone to act out. This is why the Democrats keep picking on them, but like, this is why they hold their parades masquerading as protests on weekends. They pick a nice Sunday, they go to the park, they make some glitter poster boards, they do their pep rally, and on Monday, they show up to do their bureaucratic jobs at the institutions that, run things. The same people that are protesting on Sunday, they're running the whole system they're protesting against on Monday. It's really hard. It's really hard to protest effectively when you are the thing that you're protesting against. Yeah. The other thing that's interesting about entrepreneurship is you kind of learn how to really organize things really on your own. You're not reliant on these pre-existing systems or legacy inheritances. So like if you work at a corporation, if you're creating a network from scratch, you're going out into the wild and you have no affiliation, no association, it's really hard to organize people. And I think entrepreneurship is one of the ways that you learn how to kind of like, oh crap, like it's really hard to attract people to something new. It doesn't have all the social proof behind it. So I believe that this is one way that we can kind of, again, own parts of this process. There is another kind of key thing. It's the third and final thing I would say is so important to checking the techno-feudalistic, fascistic movement. Time and time again, when we study healthy democracy, functioning democracy, there is always one prerequisite, which is that there are civic institutions that we self-organize that are a prerequisite to democracy. So associations, clubs, things that us, the people, organize and form and we join to improve our communities. When we form those civic associations and civic institutions, this is what correlates with actual healthy democracy. For whatever reason, the last like 25, 30, I don't know if it's even longer, we have abandoned these civic institutions. We've abandoned self-organizing. We sit on the couch, we doom scroll, we're alone. Everything is like now atomized. So it's all about the individual. Your earplugs in, reading your own thing, listening to your own thing. Like there is no sense of community. People use that word a ton, right? Like everyone online's like, I'm in a community. And it's like, is that a real community? You guys actually willing to drop something and help someone and do something for someone in a time of need? Or is it just like the appearance, the extrapolation of community, a derivative of community? If you need to move, can you call someone on your online community, on your TikTok community, and they come and help you move? Maybe, but I haven't really heard of that ever in my life. If you don't have someone to call up and help you move for a pizza, a couple slices of pizza, then I don't know if you really have community. I'm not talking about some like grandiose thing, but like your neighborhood. Is there something you're doing to benefit your neighborhood with your neighbors? That to me is a community. Your family can be a community because it's like people that share resources, help each other out, and like put the benefit of the whole above the self-interest. So civic institutions, we've completely all abdicated responsibility for being in them, for running them. Instead, we have the facade of civil engagement, which is doom scrolling. I know everything about everything on my phone. That doesn't do shit. Posting about things online to like-minded followers and unfollowing and blocking anyone who disagrees with you doesn't do shit. Doesn't do shit. Doesn't do shit. So I hope we can move to real action. There is this psychological facet that we all, I think, suffer from because it's a childhood, it's a legacy of the childhood mind, which is we all fantasize ourselves as heroes. So we do a lot of hero worship, and we see ourselves as heroes, and we fantasize ourselves about heroes. Whether that's like, ooh, what if there was a mugging and I stopped it, and I jumped into action, I beat up the fucking criminal, or like, what if I was put in this position of power and then I saved the system? Like there's so many different ways that we fantasize, and this is just emotional and mental indulgence. This is not real change. This is not real action. Action and real readiness come from capacity, not outrage. Outrage is a reaction. Again, it means you're being led by the other. So they're the ones that are in charge. But real responsiveness, real capacity, like a real ability to like, I build something that's able to meet the moment. That's the thing that will carry through real action. And I believe a prerequisite to this is kind of rejecting this moral fantasy, this hero worship, this like moral, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. Are you? Am I? Are we? Are we really good people? Or are we just people? I think there's a lot of mental gymnastics we have to do to prove ourselves to be good people. This purity, this moral purity that we find ourselves in, which is very religious somehow. Very religious. A lot of, again, like leftist, liberal, it almost sounds like Christianity to me these days. Moral righteousness and purity. I'm good and you're bad. But we're all engaged in a system that's exploitative. You can hide the slaughterhouse, but we're all complicit. That's from Emerson. So we've hidden the slaughterhouse, right? We've exported jobs overseas, mineral collection overseas. Like we have so much exploitative practices as an imperialistic power, but we just do it somewhere out there, over there. And then we all, enjoy the fruits of that and then sit around saying, I'm a good person. Yes, my tax dollars are paying for wars and genocides, but I'm a good person because I posted on social media. In the actual concrete actions that matter, I think we're more or less, a lot of us are kind of the same. So the more we stay in this kind of purity, this kind of I'm a good person identity, the more I think we actually can continue to act in complicit ways without acknowledging our true impact. So what would I like to see? I would like to see a new merchant class. I'm in the city of Philadelphia. Our patron saint is Ben Franklin. And what Franklin did is instill this entrepreneurial spirit in the United States. He instilled a lot of civic engagement everywhere you go in Philadelphia. I don't know how it's possible. Like every time I go to a new block on the city, there's a sign that's like, and Benjamin Franklin started this association and that association. It's like hospital, fire department, library, university, like everywhere you turn. Benjamin Franklin was constantly starting these kind of civic institutions. And he was a remarkable entrepreneur and a remarkable political figure. But all of that came in a certain order. He started as an entrepreneur, then became kind of active in civic life, and then finally became a diplomat and politician. I would love to see the rise of this new merchant class. And I bring up Franklin because Franklin, I started reading a biography about him. The Franklins, last names usually mean something, typically. So like Smith, you were Smiths. Taylors, you were Taylors. Franklins in the time of feudalism were the merchant class. They were an emergent in England, a little merchant class. The first glimmer of the old system collapsing and a new one coming to take over. So Benjamin Franklin is the apex, like the embodiment of the Franklins, of being this entrepreneurial merchant class where we prize autonomy and expression and liberty and freedom and fraternity and community engagement. And I believe that it is this example that we can draw from. We can be creative, we can be joyful, we can live life fully, we can bring celebration as an antidote to this kind of domination that we're all participating in. So my core invitation in this episode is we need to engage with the system. I hope nothing in this episode has been construed as like just stop participating in society, just ignore everything that's happening. But when we engage with the system, can we do it without feeding the system? Because honestly, if you're going to feed the system through your emotionality, then maybe it would just be better for you to disconnect. I almost would celebrate the totally ignorant, unconscious, totally like removed citizen than the one that's so connected but full of outrage and dread and doom and all of these emotions and is being led by this force that they hate, but is being led by them. The ignorant citizen at least isn't feeding the system, not feeding the system. So in some way, I would even take the ignorant citizen over the highly educated, fucked up, emotionally fucked up one. So regulation, engage with the system without feeding the system. Restore agency and community, which goes hand in hand with the emotional piece. So really, can we take ownership back? Take ownership of our relationships. Have the phone numbers in your fucking phone. Have the email addresses in your phone. Put the birthdays in your fucking phone or on a piece of paper. I don't care, but get it off of Facebook. Don't rely on the tech oligarchs to keep your relationships alive. Meet with people, call them or meet with them in person. Own your relationships, own your civic engagement, own your income as much as possible. Own yourself. Do not allow these gatekeepers to become intermediaries for things that are core parts of being human. Choose conscious participation over reaction. And all of this, in this flooding of information, of advertising, whether you're in your bedroom or in your car or you're out in the street or you're from your refrigerator, it's from your Alexa, it's like everywhere you turn, you're being blasted by things that want your emotion and your attention. So it's no longer a nice to have. We must become the Buddha in the marketplace, because the marketplace is in your bedroom. It's in your pocket. It's not just in the bazaar, in the souk, in the mall. I am constantly in the marketplace. We need boundaries, we need separation, organization, and to learn to glide through the marketplace with presence, with ease, so that then we can actually respond to what's happening in front of us. Otherwise, we will become digital serfs, digital peasants, just mining the land for someone else's benefit, just trying to pay our rent. The solution: presence, awareness, own your own relationships, own your own assets, engage and organize with other people to improve the life immediately right around you, and don't feed the outrage machine. Thank you.